Hi, this is Mr. Evans. This video is going to look at urbanisation. So this is part of what you need to know about social changes that are taking place around the world and the opportunities and threats that that's going to create for businesses. So what is urbanisation? Well, you probably come across it in subjects like geography. It refers to the process of the population moving from rural areas to towns and cities, and it's often associated with the industrialisation of an economy in what we would call developed countries like the UK. It tended to happen around the time of the Industrial Revolution. And in many of the emerging markets, we looked at the characteristics of those. Urbanisation tends to be a feature of these emerging markets that are moving from an agricultural-based economy to one more based on manufacturing or services. So there's a stat here from the United Nations saying that 1.5 million people every week are added to the global urban population. So it's a phenomenon that's going on at quite a rapid rate, and largely at the moment it's in those emerging markets. So of course, when you're thinking about urbanisation, it's in the context of opportunities and threats for business. And in fact, in the 2017 paper 2 exam, there was a question. Urbanisation was hinted at basically as something that was going on in a particular developing market, and so you may have had to think about what opportunities and threats that created for businesses. So what are the advantages of urbanisation and why does it occur? Well, like I say, it's associated with the industrialisation of an economy and the movement from a kind of agricultural primary sector type economy to a secondary manufacturing or a tertiary services type economy. So urbanisation provides access to employment for people. You look at a country like China, lots of factories there in cities. People move from the countryside to urban areas so that they can get jobs, which tend to be higher paid in the secondary and tertiary sector than they are in the agricultural sector. This provides a plentiful supply of labour for businesses, which helps to keep wage costs down. It's difficult for people to ask for an increase in wages if there's 1.5 million people a week joining cities around the world. There's a plentiful supply of labour which helps to keep wages down. Of course, there's also opportunities in terms of the demand side. So we get a supply of labour, but they also need products. They need food, they need the necessities they need to survive, which creates opportunities for businesses. It also tends to be much easier for businesses to distribute products in urban areas. You've got people all in one place. You set up a shop, people might come to you. Even if you're out and about delivering, you've got a large concentration of people in one place. Whereas if you're trying to sell to rural areas, just think about it. You might have to walk between village to village, and there's not that many people in each village. It's much more efficient to sell products in a city. Cuts your cost of production. There tends to be better infrastructure. Public services tend to be better in cities. It's easier for people to get to school, health provision, etc. So there's an argument that the workforce might be better educated and healthier. And also, living in cities tends to be more efficient in terms of like carbon emissions and so on. Food doesn't have to travel so far. Street lamps are more effectively used for lots of people. Tower blocks and blocks of flats tend to be quite an efficient in terms of energy way for people to live. However, obviously there's a huge impact on congestion and traffic if you've got lots of people trying to move about, and that's maybe not so good for the environment. there can be a huge inequality, particularly in emerging markets, between the kind of established city population who maybe have been there for a while and built up some wealth, and new arrivals, and between the rich and the poor in those cities. Often there will be creation of slum areas, particularly in emerging markets where maybe local government isn't that strong. They struggle to keep up with the huge demand for new housing, and slums develop. And linked to that is this point down here about public services being actually unable to cope. So, disposing of all the waste that's created, providing healthcare for people, providing education for all these people who are moving to the country. Healthcare is probably one word. Also, there's the impact of urban sprawl, so the kind of city overspilling and jumping onto the surrounding countryside, reducing agricultural land there, and often creating new slums. In these slums, where there's inadequate public services, inadequate waste disposal, inadequate housing, obviously that's rife for kind of disease to spread very quickly. And often moving to the city tends to be associated with an increase in stress as well. So you need to think about, okay, so what are the opportunities, what are the threats of this for business? If you're given some data maybe on urbanisation, what opportunities and what threats does this create for a business?